I can't do. I'm trying to do my Dusty.
Baby.
Hey, baby. How you doing, baby?
How you doing?
I'll tell you what, baby.
Wrestling, watching from ringside. Is that you?
That's me, baby. Live and in living color.
Only on KXVS, baby, the voice of Stockton.
So people on the Facebook, YouTube, and Periscope land are tune in any way you want to because we are watching from ringside.
All day, every day, only on Friday. And maybe Saturday, too. Sometimes on a Sunday, because, you know, they got them special shows. Know what I'm talking about, baby?
Stop stealing my gimmick. But, yeah. Ben, let's get into all seriousness. This is like... watching from ringside, as we were talking about, is a pro wrestling show. With
the
fun.
only pro wrestling show on KXGS.
Or in Stockton.
Or in Stockton, yes.
Yeah, come tell us if you're somebody else.
The premier podcast.
Yeah. The premier podcast of pro wrestling talk in the Central Valley is me and Ben, and it's fun. So we talk about the world of wrestling from our perspective and give you the latest going-ons of what's going on in the world of wrestling, right?
Yep. WWE, New Japan Pro Wrestling, Ring of Honor,
All In
NXT.
too.
Yeah, and All In,
which is brand new.
Brand spanking new.
So we're gonna
change the face of wrestling as we know it.
We're gonna break down all of that throughout, well, whenever we have a show. So I'll tell you what, Ben.
What?
Watching from ringside Fridays on KXVS, the voice of Stockton. For Ben Sanchez, I'm Dustin Brightbuilding.
Do you want to relive the golden days of Stockton? Join Nate Knott on Stockton Alive every first and third Monday at 6 p.m. Tune into thevoiceofstockton.org.
Hello, welcome to Chef Tobias Cooks, here where we have kitchen conversations with professional chefs, cooks, home cooks, bakers, and people that just can't cook. So join us every week for our kitchen conversations and learn a thing or two. And I don't burn nothing in my kitchen.
This is Darius Oliver, and you're listening to 92.1 KXVS, the voice of Stockton.
The views and opinions expressed in the following program do not necessarily reflect those of KXVS, the voice of Stockton, or its parents, affiliates, management, and staff.
Good morning, Stocktonians, and welcome to Tales and Tips. This morning we're going to have a wonderful conversation about Salvation Army and specifically services offered in Lodi. I'm so honored to have with me Major Mark Thielenhaus, who's the Corps officer, and John Narvaez, who's the shelter director. Before we jump into talking about the Lodi facility, I want to talk about an event that's coming up through the radio station. It's a hair-raising affair on Thursday, September 6th, and it's going to be at the Stockton Civic Theater, and it's $50. It's a wonderful performance, and we're going to have a pre-party, and it'll be really fun. The party on the patio is from 5 to 7. The live musical Hair is from 7:30 to 10. Tickets are $50, and that's at the Stockton Civic Theater on Rosemary Lane. So come out and join us, support the radio, support the event, support your community. Voice of Stockton is here for you, and let's dive in and talk about Salvation Army in Lodi. Major Mark, go ahead and take it away. Talk about Salvation Army in general and the Lodi facility and how you became affiliated with Salvation Army.
Sure. Well, thank you. Yes, the Salvation Army has been here in Lodi initially all the way back since 1889.
Wow.
It was just till 1913. They took a little break, and then we came back to stay back in 1991, and the Salvation Army has been in Lodi since then. Currently have a couple locations there. We've got the Salvation Army Corps, pronounced like the Marine Corps. They're at our 525 West Lockford location. That's where we have our church and our social services, food banks, and youth programs. And then, of course, we have the Hope Harbor Shelter at 622 North Sacramento Street. Salvation Army's been around a long time. I'm just so privileged to be a part of getting to meet all the amazing people that keep the Army running and trying to serve all the folks in Lodi the best we can.
Awesome. And you talked about in your career with the Salvation Army, you were in Alaska and other places. So how long have you been involved with Salvation Army? talk about why you did it, and when did you come to Lodi?
Sure. I went into the Salvation Army Training College back in 1995. It's a 2-year cross between seminary and business college. Graduated in 97, and that's when you officially are ordained an official pastor, and they put you in charge somewhere. They move us military style, just the officers in charge, so you're really only guaranteed a year at a time. And I can be sent anywhere in the western third of the United States, including Alaska, Hawaii, Marshall Islands, and Guam.
Wow.
Is where I could get sent every year. I've served 5 years in Washington, a total of 11 in Alaska, 2 in Colorado, 1 in Montana, and then we just got here 2 years ago, back in July 2016. And my wife and I originally came from Fremont, so this feels like we're getting back towards our roots. And just glad to be back in such a wonderful community where people are looking to take care of each other. So.
All right. And what motivated you to join Salvation Army?
Actually, it was the Salvation Army is first and foremost a church. The reason behind why we do what we do is we want to show God's love in a very practical way. It's hard to tell people God love them while they're really hurting. Our founder once said, nobody ever got saved while they had a toothache. So it's hard to tell people God loves them while they're hurting. So first and foremost, we want to show God's love in a practical way, and that just really impacted me, kind of changed my life. I want to be able to do something with my faith, just more than just show up on a Sunday morning. I wanted to be able to help somebody out who'd been hurting maybe like I had. So
awesome. And the need is so great, and unfortunately it's only growing. And we're seeing a lot of changes in Stockton and Lodi with homelessness, and so it's really important that Salvation Army is there and you're providing so many services. Let's talk to John. Tell us what you do at the facility as the director, the shelter director, the people that you're helping, and what inspired you to become a part of Salvation Army.
What we do there at the shelter is we oversee, all the community needs when it comes to emergency housing, rehabilitation services. There's numerous things we do there. So I oversee the staff, and what connected me to the Salvation Army, just to tell you a little bit about myself, is I'm in recovery myself. So at the age of 30, I fell into an addiction. By the grace of God, I was sent for some rehabilitation services to the Salvation Army in San Jose back in 2000. And I didn't know much about the Salvation Army before going through their rehabilitation program, but it gave me a taste of in-depth overview of how many different things that the Salvation Army actually does to the communities that they're involved in. And by the grace of God, I just celebrated 18 years of recovery.
Yay.
So
that's amazing.
It sparked something in me going through that organization. To see an organization that gives back so much to the community just made me want to be a part of it. Back in 2008, I went back to school, got my counseling degree.
Yay.
And I've been with the Salvation Army a little over 8 years now. I worked 3 years at the Stockton Rehab. Came out to Lodi just short of 5 years ago. In the capacity for 3.5 years, I was a case manager, and the last year and a half director.
Awesome.
So it's a blessing to come full circle,
Yeah.
Not only to be one in need in the community, but also to be able to come back and give back to the community.
Right.
So we do so many things as far as housing, meals. We do Friday fairs. We have women helping women groups. We have single parent units, transitional. But first and foremost, we are emergency housing.
Awesome. And we'll come back and talk about it. And thank you for sharing your story. To me, what's amazing and so meaningful about that is that you truly, above anyone else, understand the needs of people, because you can relate to them, they can relate to you, and you know what's going on. And I love that several of the organizations that help people, either whether it's through addiction or homelessness or other services, have gone through things like that themselves. And I just think it allows you to help in a way that other people can't, because of your level of understanding and connection. And that's awesome. And thank you for sharing that. That I know, well, for some people it's not easy to talk about, and I appreciate you saying that, because it just gives meaning to how big of an issue this is. And there's such a stigma, and the more we work to get rid of that stigma, the more we'll be able to help people. Talk about housing. Talk about how much housing is available at the Lodi facility, and what how the housing is designated for different areas.
We have three main things with the Salvation Army. The first and foremost is our emergency housing. We are a 91-bed facility overall. That does not include the apartments, which I'll get into shortly. But just on the 622 North Sacramento Street, we can house up to 91 people. Like I said, there's three aspects. We have our emergency housing, which is just that. It's just housing for the night. We do drug testing. So the one unfortunate barrier for some is they do have to pass a breathalyzer and a urinalysis test in order to stay into our facility.
How many of the 91 beds are designated for
We
that?
have about just short of 40 if you include the women. We have 20 on the men's side, and I think about 18 to 20 beds on the women's side as well.
And you were saying some nights those are full, other times they're not, and that there's a 56-day a year that
Yes,
they...
it is first come, first serve. There is a cap on the amount of days that can stay, which currently stands at 56 days per calendar year. So what that means is on January 1st, everybody's days reset back to 0, and they could utilize it up to 56 days. We do grant extensions, though, 28 days at a time on a case-by-case basis. So
I was going to ask you that. So what if someone has a physical ailment or something like that? Do you make special exceptions?
yes, we do. We meet with our staff as a whole every Tuesday and discuss every individual staying under our roof on a case-by-case. So
Awesome.
if there's a need and it's warranted, we will meet it.
Awesome. And then the other beds, what are those utilized for?
We have two recovery aspects. So one of our programs is a pre-program. The main goal of that is to get somebody off the streets struggling with addiction, whether it's alcohol and or drugs. What we do is we stabilize them. We get them moving in the right direction. So they could be anywhere just there for a few days up to a few weeks. It just depends on the individual. Once we get them stabilized, moving in the right direction, the main goal is in order to come in, they do have to commit to go to one of our 6-month rehabilitations, which those are, the acronym is ARC, which stands for Adult Rehabilitation Center. So we have those all throughout the Bay Area. The main ones we use in Lodi is typically Stockton and Sacramento, but we have them all the way in San Jose, Chico, Reno. We have them in Oakland, San Francisco. So
Awesome. And are you able to do any type of recuperative care at all? So if someone's come out of the hospital that's homeless, can they come and stay at your facility?
They can, but they would have to be able to care for themselves.
Okay.
We are not authorized to, we're not a medical facility on any type, so they would have to be able to care for themselves, get themselves in and out of bed, things of that nature, in and out of the showers. But we do have people with limited mobility that are welcome, yes.
And earlier when you were talking, you mentioned something that I thought was really magnificent, that you were able to house single parents and children, a certain number. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, that's a huge need, not only in the Lodi community, but in all communities, I think. There's a very short, limited amount of resources when it comes to single parents, especially single fathers.
Yes.
We can house a single mother with children on the women's side, but if they have a male child, once the male child hits 12 years of age, they can no longer, for liability reasons, stay on that side. We were having to turn down single fathers with minor children, because when you come to our facility, in order to stay on the men's side, you'd have to be 18 years of age. So 6 years ago, we were able to incorporate in part of our building that we built 3 single parent units, which is ran very similar to our overnight, so there is a cap on there of 56 days. But what it does is it allows a single father to come. It's like a 2-bedroom apartment. They have their own bathroom,
Awesome.
the main bedroom, and then they have a separate bedroom for the children. So they can utilize that up to 56 days. And we've had people there for 6-8 months that we're working towards housing. So it's a case by case. The advantage for that is they get to leave their belongings behind, and they don't have to tote them around with them all day, which gives them an ability to look for housing or to go out and look for employment.
Right, gives stability to
awesome.
the kids to be able to get their feet on the ground while they're trying to do school and everything
Yes.
else too. So it's a great program.
It's magnificent. I was so excited when you said that, because like you mentioned, there are not a lot of organizations that offer anything like that. They're just not able to.
Right.
The other thing we talked about earlier is that you are a heating and cooling center, and that you also offer emergency food and other things when there's a disaster.
Correct. I could speak on what we do at the shelter. Anytime, summertime, anytime the weather hits over 100 degrees, we open up as a cooling center. So anybody would be allowed to come in, get out of the extremities of the heat, come in an air-conditioned room, sit down. We provide cold water and stuff for them. As far as a cold shelter, in the wintertime, anytime the weather is 35 below when it's raining, we open up, or if it's 33 below and dry. So what that means is anybody can come in the evenings after we shut down for our check-ins of our overnighters. We open up our dining room. We have about 30 to 40 cots. So what we do is we don't do any testing for alcohol or drugs for those individuals. Anybody can come in and bring themselves and stay the night. And they do check out about 6 in the morning.
Awesome. And then you've also helped fire victims. You've fed people. You have a disaster program.
Right. For our emergency disaster services, our EDS, and the Salvation Army operates emergency disaster units across the nation. And of course, we service people worldwide. I saw there's some of my friends out serving in Hawaii, even now after some of the storms. I most recently, and one of our assistants most recently out at the car fires serving at Shasta. So yeah, anytime there's a local issue, like when the Star Motel had burned down the other year, because we live in those community year-round, we become the first point of contact, immediately start to serve and house and coordinate with other groups, and primarily meals and shelter. And then as the need expands, like it has in other communities, then all of our neighbors rally and start to come together, and we have a whole emergency disaster team, both at headquarters in Sacramento, and then our territorial headquarters down south that has huge resources that'll be sent in. And when people give to emergency disaster services, all those monies are earmarked. 100% of every donation that's labeled for emergency disaster, 100% all goes to a client. We don't save anything back for administration or any of that kind of thing. It all goes straight to victims. So.
And we'll come back and get some of that contact info. And I was impressed because even when there was a fire in Stockton, even though you're in Lodi, you were preparing food for people. That was great that you were there when there was a need, and it was that day. That's awesome. That's huge. Let's go back and give contact information. Let's repeat the addresses again and your website, phone numbers, Facebook page.
Sure. Well, the Salvation Army, the Lodi Corp, that's our church and social service center, people that want Christmas or food boxes, those kind of things. That's located at 525 West Lockford Street in Lodi. The phone number there is 209-369-5896. The shelter is at 622 North Sacramento Street. The number there is 209-367-9560. All these things can be found online at our website. It's lodi.salvationarmy.org. And then, of course, we're on the Facebook as well at the Salvation Army Lodi.
All right. And let's go back and mention, you were starting to mention some of the services at the Lockford location. So at Christmas time, you're giving out, let's talk about what you do for Thanksgiving and Christmas and coats.
So first of all, we have the first thing on the list is our coat drive. This year on November 9th, I have to sign up prior, but on November 9th we have a coat drive. We turn our entire back warehouse, probably about 5,000 square feet, all turned into a giant clothing store of all coats set up, and clients can come through and pick out a coat for themselves, for their kids. No kid should go cold during the Christmas season. So that happens on November 9th. We're always in need of coats. We can take those all year round, and kids' coats in particular. We want to make sure there's no cold child out there. So that happens on November 9th. And then,
yeah. How many coats will you give away? And if one of our listeners or viewers has coats, where can they take those to?
Sure. Coats can be dropped off at our Lodi Corp at the 525 West Lockford location. We take those any time of year, and then
new coats or gently used.
Gently used. They're again one of the things that the Salvation Army always wants to do. We want to serve people at their basic needs, and we also want to treat them with dignity. Give them a hand up, not just a handout.
Definitely.
So we do that at our location at 525 West Lockford. Last year, I don't remember the exact number, but hundreds upon hundreds of coats went out on that one day. And of course, anything that's not used gets stored away and is always on hand for people that need it.
Great.
So that's the coat drive. Then as we get ready for Christmas, I believe it's starting next week, we'll start scheduling people for signing up for Christmas assistance. Christmas assistance, we do things like they can sign up for a Christmas box to help the lean times during the Christmas season, all the extra expenses that happen when it's cold and keeping the heat up and the kids warm. And then we also provide toys for kids. People can sign up in angel tags for their kids, and we send that all over the town, and people can always help us with that too, and get an angel tag, pick Jimmy's tag, and know that Jimmy's looking for a red toy truck. Bring the toys back after, and we make sure that Jimmy gets that toy truck just bought for them. So
Great. And you mentioned a Thanksgiving meal also.
Yeah, at Thanksgiving Day, instead of a food box, we open up the shelter for a community meal. Everyone's welcome, no questions asked. They can come and sit down, let us serve them, and enjoy a Thanksgiving dinner prepared by us. And then we also do lots of home-delivered meals to shut-ins on that day as well.
Wonderful.
So if somebody can't get to us, we want to make sure that someone visits them, make sure they know they're loved and cared for, and get to eat well on Thanksgiving Day. So.
And does someone need to sign up for that ahead of time? And
for Thanksgiving Day, you just show up. If you're shut in, of course, we need that information in advance. They can call into our location, 369 5896, the core location. We can get them signed up for that, because we got to coordinate teams and drivers for all those kind of things to visit. But yeah, no questions asked for showing up on the day of Thanksgiving. We want to make sure people have community. There's someplace warm, fed well, and know they're cared for. Something to be thankful.
That's awesome. That's amazing. And I love you brought this flyer, and it talks about the amount of help that you're giving to people. Over 100,000 hot meals served last year, which is phenomenal. 27,000 nights of shelter stay. That's magnificent, and that's at the facility that you're directing. And then the food boxes and bags, over 16,000. Bus passes. One of you mentioned something about helping people get IDs. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, we do have free ID replacement vouchers for anybody who's in need of identification replacement. They can go to our shelter, or excuse me, to the social service office at 525 West Lockford. Monday through Friday, they can go in there in our operation hours. We do close down for lunch.
What are the hours?
8:30 to 11:30. Take a quick break for lunch, and then noon till about 4, Monday through Thursday, and just a half day on Friday.
Great.
Yeah, so anybody in need can go there, no questions asked, just some basic information. What that does is we can provide a free voucher that they can take to DMV, and at no cost get ID replacement.
Right.
Yay. Awesome. And then you've got on here back to school and bus passes. Do you want to talk about that?
Back to school, we just did recently through community leadership and donations. We were able to provide $100 for 100 children to go to Walmart and get some back to school. We actually had a wonderful volunteer turnout, which is always a necessity to get some volunteers who would actually take the child, walk them through, and actually shop with them. So a lot of our employees and volunteers really stepped up.
Great.
And the community as a whole stepped up.
And they're shopping for clothing, they're shopping for school supplies. Are you providing school supplies?
Just clothing and shoes. While they walk through, the $100 is for that specifically.
Okay.
And on the way out, they pick up a backpack filled with all the supplies ready to
Wonderful.
go. And I think 100 kids served with the shopping spree, and I think all in all around 141 backpacks and supplies as well.
Great.
So.
And when do you collect donations for that?
We'll take back to school supplies any time of the year, of course. It ramps
Great.
up right as it gets close. But anybody, you have a kid graduate high school, you got extra paper wrapped up, we'll take that for sure.
Great.
So that's the back to school as well.
Wonderful. Awesome. And earlier when we were talking about Salvation Army, we were talking about it on a local level, but it's national and also international.
Yes, we're in virtually every zip code in the United States has some kind of presence of Army assistance. I think the new number, I think, is 131 countries around the world.
Wow.
We do our services in 175 languages worldwide. So from Alaska to Africa and everywhere in between, we're there. So.
And what about locally, if someone's in need but they don't speak English? What if they speak Spanish or another language? How do you work with them?
Well, at the core building in particular, we do have someone speak Spanish there all the time. That one's easy. Some of the other nationalities, languages, we most of us pretty good at figuring something out between
Great.
Google Translate or most of the other nationalities come in have some form of ability to communicate there, but Spanish always available at our spot.
Great. And then we also have the 211 service, which I'm sure you guys utilize, that has access to hundreds and hundreds of different languages, which is great, and services throughout the community. I was going to ask you, mentioning about 211, how many other organizations do you work with? And if you want to give a shout out to any organizations that you partner with or will refer people to, please go ahead.
Well, I know I work with their local, a lot of different organizations. One of the good relationships that I've been working with is a lot of the churches. We have a good, strong relationship with the Faith Community Church has really stepped up recently. I partnered up with a men's group, and it's a collaboration of many churches, but mainly led by Faith Community. They've stepped up and are always continuing to take on projects. They redid the flooring in our shelter for us. They're
Wonderful.
coming out on September 9th. We do have a project day. It's somewhat very similar, but on a smaller level, like Love Lodi, where they're going out in the communities. I think Saturday when I was at Faith Community Men's Group Breakfast, I think they have about 15 different projects in the community that we're partnering up with. We're going to send some of our men out there, including myself, to go out there and serve the community on many levels. They're going to be partnering up, building an awning out back. We work with Lifeline Thrift. We work with, I know we've just built a relationship with the Adult Teen Challenge is now looking to come to the Lodi area that we're partnering up with. It's in brief discussions that we will partner up with them and open up some of our transitional housing for some of the men in need, so they have somewhere positive to go when they come out. Grace and Mercy, of course, Lodi House.
Shout out to Cheryl.
Cheryl, she's a blessing.
Yeah, fantastic.
Lodi House. There's just so many organizations that really, I will say this: the Salvation Army is very blessed with the Lodi community, because anytime there's a need, we put it out there and it's filled.
Great.
It's
great.
filled.
And some of the organizations you've mentioned, Lodi House has been on here, and they're doing phenomenal things for women and children in need in our community. And Cheryl from Grace and Mercy has been on here a couple times. And it's really wonderful because our area has this stigma, and yes, there's problems just like any large community, but it's amazing how many wonderful organizations we have that are making a difference. Earlier we talked about that you're getting some food through the emergency food bank, which is awesome, and I'm on the board for them. And it's amazing how many people have needs, but the organizations are working together to help people, and it's just wonderful, and it's great to hear all the phenomenal things that you're doing. Let's talk about what you need from the community, what people can give back to you, volunteers that you need for bell ringing and other things, and specific items that you'd like donated besides school supplies or toys.
Sure. I will admit the Salvation Army, in Lodi in particular, we've had a tighter year financially than many years past. Some amazing donors that have given faithfully for about a decade have had their giving portfolio change, so things are tighter this year than normal. So now more than ever, financial help is always number one. We have amazing people that give and help support us, offset the cost of food for those kind of things. But no matter how much someone gives us food to serve, it doesn't keep the lights on. So there's always got to be the financial assistance. We do have a kettle kickoff coming up on November 15th at the Grape Festival this year. So on November 15th is our kettle kickoff right before the kettle season starts. People can call in at the Salvation Army Corps and get tickets for that. And there's a big fundraiser there. It's always one of our biggest fundraisers of the year.
How much are the tickets, and what time is that event?
It's typically right around noon on the 15th. I would have to verify the cost of the tickets there if people call in. I believe it was either $20 or $40. I don't recall right off. Okay. But people can call in and find that. Or there's lots of people in town doing what we would consider our Lodi celebrities. They go around and start collecting money in advance of that event. So we only ring the bell about 5 minutes inside at lunch. We have a program there, and during that 5 minutes, people have been saving up in groups like Rotary and Kiwanis, Annette Murdaka, and some of what she does, Phil Panino, some of the other folks out there do collecting in advance, and we do a great day on that day. But then a lot of the real work happens at Kettles, of course. Have you ever seen those folks ringing the bell for us
done
outside?
That before through Rotary Club of Stockton.
And it is a fun thing to do. We ask for 2 hours at a time, 2 hours and up. It's not live just yet, but it will be soon. It can go to our website there at lodi.salvationarmy.org. There's a volunteer button. If you got a Facebook, it's just one click to sign up. You pick your day and your time, a couple clicks, and we set everything up you need. And last year we raised over $80,000.
Wow!
Just in Lodi at those little red kettles, and at a time when people aren't carrying a lot of cash around, that's a pretty amazing number.
That's a huge number, and that money stays in Lodi.
Yeah, everything in each community, whatever's raised in that town, unless a donor specifically says, please send it somewhere else. Everything raised in that town stays in that town. Every Salvation Army is self-supported by the community it lives in. So kettles, always a big deal to do fundraising as well. And then, as always, used and generally used clothing is important for us, both at the shelter for our clothing exchange that happens on Fridays. And as always, anyone can always call the Salvation Army truck pickup number, and people can come pick up any of those kind of things. Nothing is wasted.
What about furniture?
We can take anything at all. Is always recyclable. Furniture, even those electronics you don't think people take anymore. Everything gets recycled. Everything gets used. Clothing that's not usable gets ragged and turns into blankets and sent somewhere.
Records, books.
Everything, yep, all the bric-a-brac items. If you need to clean out your house before Christmas to make way for the new toys, we can make that happen.
Before a move, as always.
Yeah,
you know, the number for that is any donor that needs a pickup can always call 1-800-SA-TRUCK.
It's 1-800-728-7825.
Great. And that's a service that I think a lot of people are not aware of. So many people associate you with the kettles, and I want to give a personal challenge